Hi, and thank you so much for popping by. My name is Dr. Bitapo Baluzwi, and you're most welcome to this conversation today. There is currently a foot and mouth disease outbreak or FMD outbreak in Southern Africa. Cases are being reported in countries including Botswana, Eswatini, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. Now, according to news reports, in the case of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has described this 2026 outbreak as one of the worst FMD outbreaks the country has experienced, that the infectious disease has negatively affected exports, jobs, and cattle. In context to Botswana, the United Kingdom has issued a notice informing the public that due to the outbreak, imports of fresh bovine meat are now restricted, a notice which also speaks to the severity of the outbreak. The public notice from the UK, which is one of the largest international markets for Botswana beef, also reinforces that please be aware that fresh beef produced in Botswana can be dispatched to the UK from a cold store in South Africa. These consignments are also subject to these restrictions. Therefore, even if Botswana beef is leaving via South Africa, it will face the same restrictions. In Botswana, the Vice President, Ndabagalati, explained that 97 million pula has been set aside to support the foot and mouth disease outbreak. In Zimbabwe, veterinary authorities have confirmed active outbreaks in Matabeleland South Province, which is close to the Botswana border. The outbreak has heightened concerns over cross-border livestock movement and increased the risk of further spread in a region where communal grazing systems and informal trade are widespread. And of course, as I read that, you can immediately connect with some of the factors that are increasing the risk of the disease, such as communal grazing and informal trade within the Southern African region. And for similar reasons, including trade, another public health aspect about Southern Africa is that this is the same region that has the highest concentration of HIV and AIDS, not only within Africa, but globally. Going back to the foot and mouth disease, in Eswatini, the disease has escalated rapidly to the point that it is reportedly reaching crisis levels, and as such prompting authorities to suspend livestock sales in affected areas, with serious implications for meat exports, rural livelihoods, and national food security. Now, according to data or research, there are knowledge gaps with respect to the role and the importance of socioeconomic drivers of the foot and mouth disease. In other words, there is need to continue to explore and to determine through research the factors that increase the risk of FMD, such as how the disease is introduced into the ecosystem, how it survives, and how it spreads. Factors which also speak to the communal grazing systems and informal trade, which are widespread within Southern Africa. And another issue that is highlighted in research is the need to focus on prevention of foot and mouth disease rather than control. In other words, and as per the public health mantra, it is more efficient and more effective to focus on outbreak prevention rather than try to control the disease. The same mantra applies to the public health context in regard to HIV and AIDS, where you will likely hear the mantra, prevention is better than cure. Which is why, in the case of foot and mouth disease, South Africa is reported to be producing local vaccinations for FMD, and for the first time in 21 years, rather than to depend on imported vaccines. Thirdly, experts are cautioning against isolated national responses, which they say will be absolutely insufficient to contain a disease that moves easily across borders in Southern Africa. In other words, this is the time for integrated regional approaches to curbing and stopping the foot and mouth disease outbreak. And according to data, the populations most affected by this FMD outbreak are farmers like my father, who are smallholder farmers. These are the farmers across Southern Africa who depend on livestock as a primary source of income, food, and financial security. Now, one thing about the foot and mouth disease outbreak is that it will increase veterinary costs. It might result in animal losses, and this prolonged movement or bans risk deepening rural vulnerability and slow down agricultural growth. Now, the good thing is that foot and mouth disease is rarely fatal, meaning it is rare for animals to lose their lives. It mostly causes painful blisters in the mouths and under the hoofs of cattle. And all of this results in low milk production and cattle having to be quarantined. And that is why the disease then has that economic cost and deepens rural vulnerability and slows down agricultural growth. Alrighty, my friend, I thank you so much for popping by. I hope you are having a lovely day where you are. But most importantly, I hope you're having a healthy day wherever you're watching me from. Bye.